Kyle Filipowski continues to dominate Summer League. Did the Jazz get the steal of the 2024 draft? It's next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Give you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen. And to the everydayers, you are the best. Just got back from Vegas, where I did catch a little Jazz, a little Kyle Filipowski domination. We'll talk about it. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Before we dig into Kyle today, I wanted to share, I got to go to the Frank Layden's funeral on Saturday. On Saturday, it was a wonderful ceremony. Scott Layden gave kind of the primary speech and was really, really terrific. Michael, the other son, gave a nice talk as well. So the two of them really did a fabulous job. As someone who grew up a Jazz fan, back to 1979, Ben Poquette and Jimmy Les and Jerry Eves and Ron Boone, and to see kind of the Jazz royalty that was there, both from a business and a basketball standpoint, was pretty incredible to be in that building and have the honor of being there. The other was the pallbearers as the casket came in were Stockton and Malone walking together and in, leading the way. Which is pretty awesome. They both look great. Carl looks terrific. That was pretty emotional just to see those two together again, walking shoulder to shoulder, or as best they can at 6'1", 6'9", leading the casket in. That was Thurl was in the group, and Rich Kelly, and longtime Toronto Raptor broadcaster Jack Armstrong, Richard Smith, longtime Jazz scout. Was a lot of very, kind of awesomeness there. And, there was a sadness also that, there wasn't Larry H. Miller and there wasn't Jerry Sloan, like that this group that built this organization, the passage of time has really happened, as it does. There were tears. I don't think there was a lot of sadness in that, that was a life fulfilled, and no one's beaten the game yet to not reach that point. So, and obviously then, if depending on your religious beliefs, you've passed on to something that may be better. So it was really neat. It was an honor to be there. And huge thanks to all involved that allowed that to happen. And then in addition to that, just a pretty emotional Jazz history moment there. All right. I want to talk about Kyle Filipowski, who is dominating Summer League. So as a second-year player, he is Salt Lake and Vegas, and he's the best player on the floor when he plays right now, particularly offensively. He's gone, 22, 32, 21, 18. He did have an 11-point ball game. And he's been dominant. And so the question is, first of all, that's pretty great on what was a not very good draft, right? Last year's draft is probably the draft that has had the least success in its opening year of any draft class ever. And Kyle was 10th in minutes played, and he was 7th in points, and he was 5th in rebounds overall, and he was 8th in assists. His three-point shooting, which for a while was near the top, it's kind of hard, depends. Of guys who played 1,000 minutes, Kyle finished up with the 5th best three-point shooting at 35%. Connect was one. Bazulis was 2, Zachary Richachier was 3, Jalen Wells was 4, and Kyle was 5. So really, he had an incredible season. His win shares weren't great. That's per 48. That slipped him down a little bit, but a lot of those guys didn't play much. Of guys who played at least 1,000 minutes, his win shares, I think, were 7th best. His box plus minus, again, of guys that played about 1,000 minutes, I think, was 4th best. So here's the 32nd pick of a draft, of a not very good draft, who had a really good, effective rookie year and really may be the steal of the 2024 NBA draft. Now, the 2024 NBA draft may have 3 rotation players by the time we're done, and he may be one of them, or there may be 4 or 5, and he's one of them. But that's pretty awesome. I mean, I watched Reed Sheppard last night and yesterday afternoon in Vegas, 3rd pick of the draft. He did not look good. Like, that's the 3rd pick. Khalil Ware, who was the 15th pick of the draft, did not have a good Vegas. So the fact that we have Kyle Filipowski coming to Vegas and dominating, it's a great sign. Alex Sarr is playing. He looks okay. Ron Holland was the 5th pick, did not look great. Got out and ran a little bit, hit a shot or 2, but didn't look great. Rob Dillingham, I watched, who was the 8th pick of the draft, does not look great. Cody Williams looking better than a lot of these guys. Bazelis looked pretty good. I watched a Bulls game in the small gym, and I thought Bazelis looked pretty good, which is going to be really interesting. So let's dig in to Kyle. First of all, let's talk about the Summer League. Some positives and some negatives here. The amount of fouls is a little disconcerting, right? So he's had 5, 4, 6, 8, and 8 personal fouls in the last few games. The overall shooting, he's shooting at 53% overall, 29% from 3, and 74% from the free throw line. So first, the free throw line's great. He looks so much better at the free throw line. Remember last year, Kyle's free throw shooting was really poor. Kyle shot 65% from the free throw line last year. So his free throw shooting, which has been a little less good the last 2 days in Vegas, just looks so much better. The 29% three-point shooting is probably a little bit of let's keep an eye on that, because almost all of his offensive dominance, which is going to make him a rotation player, is going to be predicated on this three-point shooting. Now, in a summer league setting where he's the best player on the floor, he may be shooting a few more than he would otherwise. But if you remember, last year was a little roller coastery with his three-point shooting. In fact, do I have my notes over here? Yes. He starts the year up till February only shooting 30%. Then from February to March 25th, he goes to 47%. And then he closes the year just 11 of 53 from 3. So they remember that Mike Williams and Andrew Warren go through all this shooting work with him. But then he closes the year tired, I think. 11 of 53 from 3, which is not ideal. He's so far in Summer League, obviously these are small sample sizes. He's 8 of 28 for 29%. If he has one game, that swings. He is doing what he's really, really doing well is finishing at 59% on twos. So there's 2 ways to look at this. One is he is a very good crafty rim finisher, which is great. The second one to look at, maybe if you want to have a negative eye or not be as maybe more cautious than I'm being right now, is that I'm not in the Summer League. This is where like Summer League is really different, is there aren't as many bigs, and Kyle's scoring over a lot of 6'5" guys right now. But Kyle last year, and this is going to be a big step, shot 66% at the rim, which is only in the 39th percentile. But as a rookie, I think that's probably fine. That's an area where I think he really can improve. His mid-range jump shooting was 55%. And so he's showing a lot of that again. So that's pretty exciting. That's good signs. We're going to dig in next. A little geekiness coming. We're going to dig in through dunks and threes and B-ball index and really dive into his numbers last year and see if we can see where the upward trajectory is going to be and where Kyle Filipowski can be the steal of the 2024 draft And then maybe the most important question still out there is like, what position does he play? That one is the one that still keeps me up wondering where he's going to play. But a dominating summer league leading you to wonder whether this is the steal of the 2024 draft. We dive deep in the numbers next with some geeky fun on Locked on Jazz. Monday edition of Locked on Jazz is always brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Chevy. Located in Woods Cross and in Logan, the Chevy truck, the Silverado, the Colorado, there's just nothing like it. You're talking about Americana when you're talking about Chevy, and you're talking about Murdoch's when you're talking about Utah. And that is what we've got going on at Murdoch Chevy in Woods Cross. The Silverado is the big king poobah of all the trucks. Makes you feel like you're in a lazy boy chair, just killing it, sitting up atop the world, cruising. The Colorado's the zippier, fun, versatile truck that's out there. The SUV lineup of absolutely fabulous. From the Tahoe to the Suburban, the Utah County assault vehicles, down to the Trax and the Equinox with the Blazer and the Trailblazer in between. All fabulous there. And the now EV Blazer, EV Equinox, and EV Silverado for those of you looking for the EV market. Lots of exciting things going on in Woods Cross and in Logan at Murdoch Chevy, including $9,500 off and 0% for 3 years on the 2025 Silverado. So email me at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com so we can get you your Locked On VIP experience over at Murdoch Chevy. Today's show is also brought to you by the official sports book of Locked On, FanDuel. Summer sports in full swing, whether you're all about baseball under the lights, a little home run derby action, whether you took advantage of the Wimbledon fun or whether it's golf on the greens or high-stakes soccer, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I'm using all sorts of fun ideas for you. I've got for you out there on FanDuel. So track your favorite matchups, get involved in the home run derby, enjoy it with your buddies, whatever it might be. Same game parlays, watching a bet ride into the ninth inning. FanDuel makes it feel like you're a part of the action. New to the FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and glad to be with you and glad to be available for you. So thanks so much for tuning in. For that, anybody else went down to Vegas Summer League. Been a bummer not to see Ace Bailey. That groin injury is real, by the way. They're not shutting him down. Even the other day, I know he went through a 3-on-3 trying to get ready. We saw Walt Clayton's hamstring was real. I don't know if that's because of, who knows? I mean, Ace Bailey, the easy answer is to say, well, he didn't work out as much, and so therefore he maybe wasn't as ready. Walt Clayton did, so then that's an easy answer to say, well, he's worn out because of the fact that he was traveling all across the country, going through all these draft workouts. So I don't know the answer. Like you can really take both sides of this. But it's a bummer not to get those reps and those actions. All right, let's take a look at Kyle. There's a few sites I like to use. One of them is called Dunks and Threes, and that's been built by Tyler Schnarr, who is a Utah kid who actually used to work for the Jazz for a long time, may still actually in some capacity. So he does some really, really good work. So if you're watching on YouTube, I think wait a sec. Well, I don't want to share my sign in. They've signed me out. That's funny. I have to unshare here because of the fact I did the prep before the show started. And then when I just went here, they wanted me to log back in. So we will not be sharing that. All right, here we go. So Kyle, if we look at Kyle last year, just on some big overall estimated plus minus numbers, just to get an idea of where he ranked, he seemed to rank for the season in his overall rankings of things. If we look at Jazz players and where the Jazz rank out and all their players, Kyle Filipowski last year was in the 70th percentile in offensive plus minus. It's pretty great for a rookie. He was our 5th best offensive player. Lowry Markin and Colin Sexton, John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Filipowski, which leaves him as our second best offensive player at this point on estimated plus minus. His defense, honestly, was no worse than everybody else on the roster. It was bad. He's in the 11th percentile of all defensive players, but Jordan was worse. Isaiah Collier was worse. Colin Sexton was worse. Cody Williams was worse. Johnny Juzang was worse. Bryce Sensabaugh was worse, and Keontae was the worst in the NBA. So Kyle's in the 11th percentile defensively, and then all these other guys are less good, which is we got to get better defensively. On his overall estimated plus minus, as a rookie, Lowry was the best, then John Walker, Colin, Jordan, actually even Svi Mykhailiuk, and then Kyle. So pretty good. And I'll bet if we went through the draft class last year, finding players whose estimated plus minus was at the even level of the 52nd percentile is probably not that many. His true shooting percentage was in the 69th percentile. His 2-point shooting was in the 91st percentile. So that's pretty great. His 3-point shooting actually by the end of the year was not very good, which is worth noting because he was not a great shooter in college. And in the summer league so far, he's 8 of 29. And we talked about the fact that he slumped at the end of the year. That's the key to everything with Kyle, is that the premise of everything you believe in Kyle is that he's a stretch big, either a 4 or a 5 offensively, that is going to allow you to open up the floor for everybody else to have their driving lanes, and then his incredible ball handling, passing, ability to handle coming out of the break, things like that are going to give you great versatility. And then if you get a switch, that his size and strength is going to allow you to play him down low in the block. That's the scenario by which Kyle Filipowski is a very, very good, valuable offensive player who plays a lot. If the 3-point shooting's not there, some of these things start to crumble pretty fast. Then are you really playing 4 or 5 out because the defenders are sagging off him, and like the Clippers did, daring him to shoot. And then he can't really play the handoff game with the same propensity or have that spin that he has out of the handoff game if they're dropping off him and not believing in the shot. So the shot is probably the foundational piece here that allows Kyle to use all of his other awesome skills to be that good of an offensive player. So that's like in regards to like, are we certain Kyle's a great offensive player and an NBA rotation offensive player? That piece actually still holds a little bit with whether or not the 3-point shooting comes along. But generally, that feels pretty good and pretty exciting on there. And then his ability to finish at the rim is the other part, but I think he's showing the signs of, despite not having a great deal of vertical lift on him there. His shooting, as the free throw shooting was in the 9th percentile. His mid-range shooting was in the 95th percentile. His rim finishing was in the 63rd percentile, which is not great for a big. So we've kind of touched on those things there. And then his amount of shots assisted based on where he is on the floor was interesting. Obviously, his 3-point shooting, 94% of it is assisted, which you'd expect. His rim shots are only 44% assisted. So he's creating some of that activity himself in the post, offensive rebounds, things of that nature. 58% was assisted, but it's in the 44th percentile. So he's doing that a little bit more than most players, which is good. Now, B-Ball Index is a really, really detailed site. They do some incredible stuff in the level by which they break stuff down. And I just have figured out I use a different browser for my doing the web, doing the broadcast, this part broadcast stuff, and all my sign-ins are on the other browser. So that's a little bit what's going on here of why my passwords aren't passing across. I'll fix that. All right. So Kyle, if we take a look at Kyle and some of his skill set, according to B-Ball Index, which is a really great, interesting site to look at, and we'll dig in even deeper. That was kind of the overall look of Kyle and just kind of the big picture of things. This is going to be the like deep dive, and then what the path forward is for Kyle to become that kind of dominating or offensive player. And then obviously the question. So he's really skilled offensive. You look at his one-on-one numbers and his one-on-one shot making. They do everything by grades, like school grade. He gets an A- because in the 80th percentile. His mid-range talent puts him as a B+. He doesn't have a lot of shot creation ability. Like he's getting that when he's open, he's not creating. It's not like he's pulling into it, but his making gets him an A. His mid-range talent is a B plus. His floater talent is a B. So there's just a lot of skills there in the 2-point range. His perimeter shooting, his overall gravity, he gets a C, and his off-ball gravity, he gets a C, and that's kind of what we're talking about. And his 3-point shot creation gets a D plus. So he's not creating these himself. He's getting open. Guys are leaving him, and then he's got to make it. And his ability to do that was a C plus last year at 35% in the 57th percentile, right on league average by the end. He just got to pick that up a tiny bit, or maybe 35% is okay. It's probably the benchmark line where if he slips under that, then you have a problem. Whereas if he stays at that, you're probably there. We're going to look at some of his defensive stuff, and that gets interesting. And that leads to obviously some of the questions in regards to what his future is. And we'll do that as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Continuing on the Kyle Filipowski deep dive using the site B-Ball Index, which does great work, and just want to give them the shout out. So defensive matchups, Kyle spent last year 37% of the time guarding the center and 22% of the time guarding the power forward. What's interesting is I keep hearing from everyone that Kyle's got to be a power forward who can switch. That's the line that I hear from everyone, or he's got to be a center who can switch. And there was a feeling going into Summer League that I thought Kyle was going to play a lot of 4. He's played almost exclusively 5. And I wonder with some of the injuries if Kyle couldn't have slid to the 4 and have Songo play the 5 and give Kyle some more experience there. It is really not clear to me what position he is defensively. The thing that is clear, and as you look at some of his defensive numbers, and these are not necessarily set by year 1, so let's not just pigeonhole him into what he is in year 1, but it is, some of these are pretty. So his rim protection last year, interior defense, Kyle got an F in the 1st percentile. His rim deterrence got an F in the 5th percentile. So he ranked 538 out of 569 players in rim deterrence. He ranked 552nd out of 560 players in rim protection, not just of centers. He ranked 552nd out of 560 players. That's every player who played in the NBA last year. So he's not a drop big unless something dramatically changes, like his arms grow. He's not a drop big. So Kyle's defensive stuff is going to have to be his ability to switch and play some on the perimeter. Now, what's so interesting, he's a really good post defender because his lower body is so strong. And we saw some of this last year where he struggled on some of these things defensively. Let's get to his rebounding, which is really an asset. So he's an A offensive rebounding talent. He's an A- rebounding, what they call crashing skill. That's the ability to put themselves in a position to compete for an offensive rebound. And then what other things I think is interesting is there's rebounds in which your team's getting no matter what. The rebound comes off, there's no one around, there's 3 guys there. Kyle's the big guy, they let him have it. And then there's the rebounds in traffic. And I have felt as though in Summer League, he has not rebounded nearly as well in traffic as he did last year, which has been concerning. There's been a lot of 3rd and 4th opportunities for opponents. But if you look at his rebounding conversion skill, the player's ability to convert an offensive rebound opportunity, he was an A last year. He was really good at getting putbacks, but according to B-Ball Index, his conversion rate on putbacks is not very good. He actually gets an A- for getting putbacks. He gets about 1.5 per 75 possessions on the floor, which is super high. He's just in the 12th percentile, gets an F for converting those, which may be that athleticism once he gets in there, the size and length, and he's got to kick it out to other people. His perimeter defense, isolation defense is an F, ball screen navigation is an F, off ball chaser is a D-, is a D. So this is the question. But then you get into some of the offensive stuff, and it's pretty incredible. It's pretty great, right? So the fact that he's a big guy that can really use the ball, play with the ball in his hands. His playmaking talent is a B. His passing creation's an A. His passing versatility is a B as a rookie. Very good in the post. He's in post up points per possession. He's an A. It's not great because post ups aren't great, but it's pretty darn good. His screening talent, he got an A+. I mean, you just see this across the board. And obviously, one of the more interesting one is like teammate strength and things of that nature. And he doesn't, this was not a particularly good team he's playing on, so he's not able to play off a ton of guys in that realm, in that range. So it's a really interesting mix here that we're talking about with Kyle, because we're seeing he is in Summer League, how dominant he is offensively. And then we can see it in all of his playmaking and his handling and his different things. And it grades out exactly as you would expect. And a little bit of that mid-range and be able to play in the post and be able to pass and be able to conduct the offense. And that becomes really, really strong if he becomes a 38% three-point shooter, which this free throw shooting jump to 74% is really encouraging. And then the question, and I don't, the rim protection numbers defensively, I think of those numbers I just gave you defensively, and you look at Kyle's path forward, the rim protection and rim deterrence numbers, I think those are a relevant data point, because when Kyle came out of college, everyone kind of said he's 6'11", but he's got short arms and he's not a rim defender. And that parlayed to be true. And so I think you hold that. Some of the other defensive numbers I throw out kind of as first-year NBA player, learning it, let him adapt his skills. Let's see if he can work on some lateral movement. Let's see if at 6'11", he can use his length on the perimeter better than he can at the rim and become that player. And let's not just pigeonhole him and forever say bad lateral defender. We're going to see. There were a bunch of plays last year, Nasri at the free throw line, a bunch of plays where guys caught it and spun on him and his reactions were slow. That's going to be really important to watch develop. That's what year 2 and year 3 are for. But the offensive skill set puts him on the floor as a productive player. And now, can he become viable defensively? And if he can, that's pretty great. That's the 32nd pick on a draft that was not good. And that would be, if Kyle Filipowski becomes a rotation player in the NBA, that's the steal of that draft. That and Jalen Wells are the steal of that draft. Wouldn't it be something if there's only 4 or 5 rotation players in the whole draft and 2 of them came out of the second round? All right, to the floor last night, Jazz obviously without Clayton and without Bailey in the Summer League game took a little bit of the pizzazz out of watching it and seeing it. Cody Williams had the full Cody Williams experience last night. The first half, Cody Williams is pretty much non-existent. In the first quarter, Cody plays 8 minutes. He goes 1 of 5. He has 2 turnovers. So he was at least shooting aggressively. In the second quarter, he played 8 minutes and was just out there. I think he took a shot. I don't think he had a rebound. Then in the third quarter, he had 4 rebounds, 2 assists. I like these numbers better. He also had 11 points. And then in the fourth quarter, he kept that aggressiveness up. He had 3 more rebounds. He had 5 fouls, and he had 8 more points. So kind of the full where he is right now, Cody Williams experience, finished with 22, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. The 4 assists, the 8 rebounds, and the 3 steals are probably what's most encouraging for me in that performance. In the way that he played. On the night before, on the Friday night game, Cody was terrific. In the Friday night game I went to, Cody was really, really terrific. The Jazz lost that one, 111-105. Isaiah, unfortunately, made a bunch of really non-heady plays late in the game. But Cody in that game had 21. He was 8 of 19, 3 of 11 from 3, but just an array of drives and moves. Only 3 rebounds, 1 assist. That's kind of why I like these bigger numbers. And really thought he played well. Kyle was the dominant player in that game. Dominant player in that game. And then Cody really was strong. And that was against Tajon Salon and Kalkbrenner, who's a legitimate center. And Con Knippel played in that game for Charlotte before he needed rest in game 2. And Liam McNally was really good in that game for Charlotte. But I thought that was a good test for Cody and played well. So we're seeing growth. Don't close the, these guys are so young, right? Don't close the door on Cody Williams yet. That would be what I would tell you. Jazz play the Spurs tonight, or actually I think it's going to be about 6:30 our time. So yeah, that's tonight. And they're 0-2, and so we're not going to be, I don't think we're competing for a Summer League championship. We'll see whether any of the guys are able to go. The hope was in that off day that the guys would get healthy and get ready to go, and weren't able to. So I don't know whether now we're getting to the point where I think the Jazz only have the Washington game on the 16th, and I'm not sure they have another one after that. So you're getting close to like, is it worth bringing a guy out for one more game? Not sure. All right. I got asked a super interesting question after the show on Friday, which Ask LOJ on our best assets, of whether the trade exception we got in the John Collins deal was one of our 5 best assets. I'll touch on that tomorrow because I figure if you're 30 minutes in the show, you actually care about trade exceptions. So we'll have that for you tomorrow. In the meantime, make sure you check out Locked on NBA. We're still going daily each and every day. Check that one out for you. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to follow me on socials, it's DLock09. And we now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel on YouTube, Locked on NBA. And if you're on audio, check out Locked on NBA, the daily show. Have a great one. See you later.